We got Stevie Wonder here on the podcast tonight.
It's Mr. Wonder. Mr. Wonder. Paul keeps calling me Zolak, so I like Zolak better than Stevie Wonder. I can do the Zolak. I could picture myself being Zolak.
He's always got the shades on in the 98.5 studio.
Just talking crap about the Pats. These guys are soft. They're soft. Hi, I'm Nick. And I'm Josh.
And this is the PUDs Podcast. Excellent. So we've got our buddy, Mr. Paul Lamar here with us tonight, sitting in on the podcast. I think he's going to be sitting in on a couple of the next episodes with us. So wanted to get his feet wet a little bit, as it were. So how's it going, Paul?
It's going. Thank you very much for having me here. I am honored to be in both of your presence for sure.
You're too kind. Thank you, Paul. Happy to have you, man. Looking forward to it.
Josh with the shades and the Ninja Turtle.
Yes. So for those of you, I was gonna say, for those of you that can't see, because this is an audio medium, unless you're watching us on YouTube, which thanks, but Josh has sunglasses on and a Ninja Turtle sweatshirt. The Ninja Turtle sweatshirt isn't that weird. But care to explain why you were wearing sunglasses in your basement right now, buddy?
I like that the Ninja Turtle the melting popsicle Ninja Turtle sweatshirt is not the weird thing that I'm doing now.
I've seen it many times before.
Yeah, no, you have. But yeah, for the listeners, so yeah, I'm wearing my sunglasses indoors this evening because I not too long ago got my eyes dilated. So all these lights are super bright to me right now, and it's hurting my eyes and giving me a headache. So I got my shades on, looking real cool.
That you do. You look. I was saying maybe you look a little bit like Stevie Wonder, or you guys are. This Zolak guy. He's just. I take it a sportscaster. You guys keep talking about.
Yeah, 98.5 the sports hub.
I do not.
Steve Zolak, Mike Zolak,
Scott. He was a Patriots quarterback.
Scott Zolak.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He's like this big dude.
And
he just sits. He's like the only one on the show too that wears the glasses. He just like sits there with the glasses the whole time.
Exactly.
It's not that
yeah, it's very unnecessary.
I'm sure you heard it. If you ever listen to the Pats on the radio, he does the commentary.
Yeah.
And he's got no filter. He's great.
Yeah. For a guy that wasn't that good as a quarterback, he really just lets him have it.
Yeah. Sure does.
So what's new with you guys? Anything going on locally? Anything interesting? Any interesting goings-ons or?
Start with you, Paul.
Oh, geez.
Paul, what's up, man?
Yeah, I know you were just at the outdoor expo as well, which I know we touched upon a little bit in this reverse podcasting timeline that we were just chatting about. But how was that? I mean,
we haven't touched upon it yet. We haven't done that yet.
We're breaking this.
Yeah, we actually didn't really dive into that. It was so I was in the booth for the Alzheimer's Association, for 48 Peaks and helping promote that event. Certainly have an attachment to the disease, losing my father. It'll be a year on Sunday to the disease. So I was honored, privileged to have been chosen to represent 48 Peaks in the booth. It was a cool event. I was a little, the foot traffic was like nonstop to the booth, which was great. Because a lot of people wanted to talk about their connection to the disease, or it wasn't just 48 Peaks. They also, 48 Peaks is part of the Longest Day, which is the big fundraising umbrella for the Alzheimer's Association. And so they had a couple folks in the booth that were there to represent the Longest Day bike ride and the Boston Marathon team and such as well. So. It was, the one thing, so it was great. Like the conversations were nonstop. I got there at 9. I think I was talking to people until like a little after 5, but there was just no break. So I didn't, the unfortunate part was I didn't get around to the expo. And so it's actually it's two expos in one that co-located. It's the Boston Run Show and then the Outdoor Expo. And so there was all, a lot of the North Country brands that we're familiar with were there. Bergen, Willard, it kind of goes on and on.
Okay.
And so I would have, Cindy ended up doing a lot of the foot traffic around the expo floor, but there was a lot of great presenters too. They had a couple stages where people were, we'll call them hiking and outdoor, some rock climbing celebrities and running celebrities and such. I had certainly had a couple fanboy moments, just seeing Meb, was a former Boston Marathon winner, walk by and kind of got to hear him speak, out of the back of my ear. And I can never remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but the guy who is the founder of the Barclay Marathon, Ultra Marathon down in Tennessee, who's got to have part psycho in him, to create that race. I mean, Josh, if you don't know anything about this thing, I think Nick and I have chatted about it a little bit, but he started this ultra marathon back in the backwoods of
Gary Cantrell.
Yes, yeah,
is the organizer.
It just looks like Santa. He's walking around. He's got this big great beard and everything, and so it's this backwoods ultra marathon in Tennessee that they actually don't release the course map until the day before the event or the day of the event.
Yeah, so interesting how they changed that. 100 miles, 5 laps of 20 miles.
That must be tough to change.
So in 30 years, there's only been 25 finishers. And last year, so last year was actually the first year of a female finisher, which is really cool.
Wow.
So he was walking around. I don't know if he had a speaking gig or if he was there, endorsing something or such. But it was a great event. It was, I was there Saturday. It was a 2-day event. So, and I think there was an equal amount of foot traffic to the Alzheimer's booth on Sunday as well, Megan said. And it was definitely cool to be around. Would have liked to explore a little bit, but it's not really what I was there for, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I didn't realize what a big thing that was. Maybe I just am out of the circles of people, but it's funny how I number one, I didn't realize it was the same thing. And I also didn't realize when I was saying all these different vendors like Bergen and Catula and all these different kind of people were there. It's pretty neat that there's and I feel too there's a ton of crossover with the hiker runner community and trail runners and stuff. So I imagine there's a lot of duplicity as far as what people are interested in when they go to something like that. So that sounds pretty neat.
Yeah. A lot of the big brands too. It wasn't just Arc'teryx was there.
Okay. I get a bone to pick with them because I ripped out the pocket on my shell.
That's an expensive bone right there.
It is expensive. So I was actually looking it up, but they do have a full warranty on everything where you can send it in and they'll either replace it or fix it. But the kind of thing is all winter I've sort of been stuck with it because I don't want to just send it back and I'm not going to buy another shell in the meantime. So probably once we get out of the cold winter season, I'll ship it out in a USPS package and see what they say. But anyways, I do love Arc'teryx, despite that their stuff being ridiculously expensive.
Podcast business must be good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's flying.
Not as good as you think. Could always be better.
It's a tough economy. All right. You guys want to get?
Have you seen the price of eggs?
Yeah, no, for real. They were saying something the price of I think it's gone up by a third almost in the past 3 months or something crazy. The price of eggs.
Yeah, you should do a coffee donations to the podcast. Instead of coffee, doing eggs.
Eggs.
Yeah,
we're gonna start exactly the same.
Nick is a big time egg guy too.
I love eggs. I've been made fun of on one occasion because I enjoy making omelets out of various things.
Not just one. Not just one. Every chance I get to talk about Nick's strange love for eggs.
Well, we had the idea of omelet box way back. I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast, but this was I think probably after having a few beers with our significant others. But I think we were joking about we have a business where people just send us their leftovers. and we'll make you an omelet out of it, and we'll just send it back to your house. Omelet box. Omeletbox.com.
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 Is that an old omelet? We'll make it into an omelet for you.
We'll omelet your omelet. We don't care.
Sounds like that Food Network show Chopped. You know, you just open up that basket.
Chopped.
You don't know what you're gonna get.
No,
dude, I love Chopped. I love Chopped. Is Chopped still running?
It probably is. You know, you open up the basket, you got a shoe.
Yeah, it's got to be right.
Some radishes.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness! All right, I'm sorry to diverge, Nick. We can get into the
No,
music.
it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, let's get into the next music moment. I got one lined up for us this week. All right, so for tonight's Nick's music moment, I have the dual EP, which made sense by the name. I didn't know until I looked it up, but it's called "Just Give In, Never Going Home" by Hazel English, and came out in 2017. So Hazel English is a Australian, I guess, alt rock, pop, whatever you want to kind of call it, artist from Melbourne, Australia originally. She actually moved from Melbourne to San Fran in 2013 through a student exchange program, and then kind of moved to Oakland from there. Afterwards, she ended up sort of by chance meeting Jackson Phillips of the band Daywave through open mics in the area, and then she kind of started making music from there. So a big fan of this album. I've kind of been going down this rabbit hole of artists like Sea Lemon, and kind of just combing through. Really enjoyed this double EP. I think it's got some really solid songs on it. I'm a big fan of the songs Control and That Thing. I've kind of been spinning it on repeat in my car. I feel like it's interesting too. Like I feel like we're going through, I don't know if it's with the Stranger Things, like all these vibes, but there's definitely a resurgence, it seems, of like this 70s, 80s synth sort of pop where like they're like trying to make stuff sound older than it is. Like I feel like listening to it, you can tell it's produced. Yeah, so do I. I mean, I'm like a big fan, but it's interesting with the production, especially of this double EP, where like you think it could have been made like in like the 80s, the way it sounds. Like it sounds a little bit washed over, which I'm kind of a fan of. But yeah, good stuff. I would check it out. Just Give In, Never Going Home by Hazel English.
Synthy pop.
You know I'm a sucker.
It's gotta have it.
You got any Josh's Jazzy for us tonight?
Yeah, I do got a Josh's Jazzy, but it's very it's not the typical Josh's Jazzy. Yeah, I mean, I guess it all depends on what a typical Josh's Jazzy music moment is, but there is no, that's the thing. That's the thing about it. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of SpongeBob songs lately because Jeremiah is on a kick right now, dude. He is like knee deep, loving him some SpongeBob songs. So yeah, I've been loving me some SpongeBob songs, and it just kind of brought to my mind, well, what is your favorite SpongeBob song, Nick?
I mean, I'd have to go with probably the theme song, right? Or what's the one where they're riding he's riding like a rock across and trying to deliver a pizza?
Oh, Krusty Krab pizza.
Yeah, the Krusty Krab pizza song.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably up there.
Paul, you got a favorite SpongeBob song?
I got nothing. Nothing. Sorry, it's
a little. That's a little after your time. Yeah. Yeah, and your kids are probably a little bit older too. I feel like it's been
around long enough that I should know. You know, I certainly know the theme song. But anything beyond that.
Okay.
You got me thinking the Lego movie song right now. It's like what's now
Lego everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Yeah, so we'll have to get Jeremiah on, and he can school you guys on some SpongeBob songs. But yeah, man, I think "Ripped My Pants" is probably my favorite one. That one's a good one. But yeah, SpongeBob, check it out. Add it to the playlist.
All right, Paul, do you have anything? I'm trying to think like Paul's percussive predictions. Like I don't know what we could call it.
Yeah, gosh, that's I'm gonna have to get adds ripping my pants to my playlist and come up with a name for my little. Give me all these action items. I love it.
Yeah. Are you an avid music listener, Paul, or you podcaster, or what?
I am all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm not in the car a lot, so like the times that I am in the car, I work from home.
Yeah.
And the kids are off at school right now, so it's like my little radius. If I'm not going up to the mountains, I don't really listen to a lot of music. So, but when I do, I just love the Southern Cal, Sublime, Dirty Heads, Stick Figure. That's kind of where I've been gravitating to a lot recently. But, kind of bleeding into some reggae too. I like Stephen Marley and Damian Marley as well. So, but I could get all sentimental and bring it back to, some 80s music and and such as well. So I am all over the place for sure. But I rarely sit down and listen to, an albums, start to finish. Certainly these days. A lot of the drive time, man. I'm listening to you guys.
Well, we appreciate that. So
we appreciate that for sure.
I did want to, while we're talking about music, and I know you don't listen to music at all when you run, right? Like you're just straight up just.
You raw dogging it? Are you raw dogging it?
Most people, I think, from what I understand, most people I know that are more quote unquote serious runners, which I absolutely consider Paul in that group since you just ran the freaking Chicago Marathon. But it sounds a lot of them I don't listen to music. So.
Wow.
It actually wasn't by choice. It was because I realized I must have the sweatiest ears. I went through a stretch where I would buy a new set of earbuds, Bluetooth, whatever this, Plantronics, Jabra, all these, Skull Candy, just trying everything. I'm an Android guy, so I don't have the luxury of AirPods. So, and without fail, within like a month, 2 months or something along those lines, I could only get like one of them to work. And so I would be like, here I am, I'm in a marathon training cycle and I got to go out and run like 18 miles and I'm like 2 miles in and all of a sudden it's just playing one ear. And it just like, it stressed me out to like the point where it's just like, I just want to turn around and go home. So I said, screw it, and I just pulled the plug, so to speak, probably 2 years ago or so. And I've stopped running without music or podcasts or anything. And it makes the long runs hard. No doubt.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm always, that's kind of why I'm always like looking for newer stuff to listen to. Cause fortunately, like you, Paul, working at home most of the time, like I get to get out for like 45 minutes an hour and either walking or running, I'll usually throw music on. So I I don't know. Running was tough. I will agree with you though, that like, cause I've had it happen where one of my AirPods dies or something. And it is like a visceral anger that I have, like, especially if it's like a mile and a half into a 5 mile run. And it's like, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I end up ripping them out. And the one AirPod, I just can't do it.
Yeah. No, stop to walk for a little bit, figuring it out, like hammering the heck out of them, trying to
like shaking it and like,
just like son of
a raw dog in a marathon is like insane. That's insane to me, dude. To just go out there, no music and just blast out.
Yeah, I mean that's a different situation though, because I mean, in Chicago, the crowd is nuts for pretty much start to finish.
Oh wow!
And so they are carrying you.
Wow.
And so some of the recommendation for those bigger races is to not run with music so you can actually hear the crowd and you write your name on your bib so they're shouting they're shouting your name at it. And for me it was really cool. I ran in Chicago in honor of my dad, and so we all call my dad Pops, and so I had Pops written on my bib, and so I had people like screaming Pops, like the whole, cool. Through the whole Chicago Marathon. And so just carried me. But what's really hard, Josh, is like Saturday morning, 4:00, you're getting up and out the door at 6 in the morning to run like 18 miles without music. Like that's hard.
No,
that's hard.
Like listening to your heartbeat for like how many an hour and a half or whatever.
Because it's just me listening to myself ugly breathe. Just
exactly. You're not wrong.
No, that's good listening for the listeners. That's what I have to hear every time I go out running with no music.
Well, on that note, let's roll on to our main topic of discussion tonight.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So, I'm sorry for that.
Apologies to all the listeners for that. I assure you, Josh doesn't actually sound like that when he's under duress. It's not a far cry, but it's not that bad.
I don't know. Oh man.
All right, so tonight, I wanted to do some catching up. So it's been a little bit since we recorded behind the scenes for everybody. So we're just kind of stacking up episodes, and did want to run down my trip to the Adirondacks bagging Street and Nye with Ash. Sort of the last weekend in February we got out there, and Paul had quite the day. I believe President's Day weekend. I think it was like the Saturday or one of those days you were up, and like trying to bag the twins with Christian Hikes the Whites, who have actually crossed on trail. I crossed after I did Carter Dome, which went awry, it sounds like. And then you also tried to bag Willey after that. And as everybody's mentioned this year, there's just a shit ton of snow up in the way. It's I think it's one of those things too where even I was like did not believing it until you start getting there up above 3,500 feet. And there's just a lot this year, and it's really hard to manage, and it also is really making for maybe some tough decisions here and there. So figured we'd run through sort of the hikes and catch up a bit. So Paul, I figured I'd sort of let you start with your harrowing day, which you were texting me back and forth. I think I was like, oh, how'd it go? And you were just like, or some basically the text equivalent of just like like, where do I start kind of deal.
You know, if you want to like put a music title to my day that Saturday, I think it was the 22nd. It was the Blues Traveler, Mountains Win Again. That was like, I was humming that song after the second hike on my way down. If you're familiar with that song, so yes. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I've been chatting on and off with Christian Hikes the Whites, over Instagram for a while. Good dude, lives in North Shore, Mass, and he's gritting. He's working on his single season winter right now, and just crushing it. And so finally, it ended up working out that it was like, all right, we both had this day, and he needed the twins for his winter 48, and I needed the twins for my lifetime. And so it was like, all right, let's let it rip. And what's, you know how it goes. I mean, especially it's even worse for you, Nick, living in Massachusetts and trying to get up there. It's just a production. So I went up and certainly with, so the plan was the twins plus Galehead. And so we were going to do a car drop at Seven Dwarfs and then a car drop at the Beaverbrook picnic area. And 5 a.m. start. So I'm like, I'm not doing this in the morning. So I went out, stayed at got a bed at the Notch Hostel, stayed at the Notch Hostel the night before. Alarm goes off at 3 a.m. And it's just get the game face on, and have my breakfast, put all the layers on, and to go to meet Christian at Beaverbrook. So I met him at 5. We were probably on the trail. It's by Seven Dwarfs, or doing that street walk by maybe 5:15, something like that. So it's ready to snowshoe, and it's probably a mile and a half from the Seven Dwarfs to the North Twin Trailhead. Yeah, something like that. And I did want to fill in people in too, because even you were asking me what the deal is with the Seven Dwarfs. And it is a little bit weird if you've never done it before, but basically they are a functioning hotel, I guess. Still, I don't.
no discredit to them, but it's an interesting. It looks like it's right out of the '60s. And fun story: my dad and his family actually stayed up there. He recalls as a kid being 6 or 7, and my grandparents actually drove up there and they stayed up there for like 4 or 5 days back in like 1972 or something like that. So he has a fond memory of that place. But anyways, brief aside.
Yeah, I don't know if it's open in winter, which might be why you're allowed to park there for, you know, a $10 parking fee. You just, you know,
exactly.
And thanks for that tip. You know, like put $10 in an envelope under your windshield wiper, and it's magically gone by the time you get back.
Yep, and they won't tow your car or whatever else could happen to it. But anywho, anyways.
Yeah, so it was, you know, so we set out again around like 5:15, and you know, I was just on that trail, the North Twin Trail, the week before, grabbing hail. So, like, you know, I knew my whereabouts, you know, for a bit. But, you know, the first mistake we made was, you know, there's the old way to get to North Twin, which ends up doing 3 river crossings. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Little River. Little River.
Yeah, ironically, the Little River.
Yeah,
it's like worst stream crossings in the Whites. On a trail.
Yeah, or you can keep going straight and just do like passing the Fire Warden's Trail up to Hale and just keep going straight, and then you only have one river crossing, maybe about 2.5 miles down, I think.
Yeah.
You know, give or take. But we ended up going the old route, so we crossed over, and you know, clearly no one goes over on that side. The old North, they're both called North Twin Trail, but it's like an old rail trail, it seems.
Yeah, so I think the AMC might have officially relocated around COVID time to actually the other side. But I think like depending if you're working on like a certain edition of the White Mountain Guide or whatever, and I know I've seen people on that side. Like when I came down in September with my future brother-in-law Matt. We saw people actually on the other side when we split up, and they were kind of like, "Oh, where are you guys going?" And I'm like, "Well, this saves like 2 river crossings." And I've never done the other side of the trail. I know redlining people and stuff that have and tracing people, but yeah. So I'd have to double check on that. I can fill that in the notes whether it's legit or not and what happened.
Well, I can tell you, no one had been over there. You know, so we probably I'm throwing a dart here, but maybe, you know, a half-mile stretch of 2 to 3 feet of snow to wade through. Until, you know, basically until we got to that second river crossing, and made it back over to the other side. And it was probably maybe at that point, you know, you're past Fire Wardens, so a little less traveled. I think there might have been like 6 inches of snow or such. You know, it wasn't too bad. So we continued down North Twin, and then did the third and final river cross, and probably, you know, right before we were starting to hit real elevation. Christian's an animal. I think the day before he had done Mariah and had a lot of trail breaking in Mariah, which is you know, via Stony Brook, I think he did, and you know that's a 10 miler, and he had a lot of snow to break through. So I was getting a little ahead of him, you know, at times with fresher legs and everything, and so, you know, we were probably half mile or so, you know, maybe a little further heading, you know, starting to head into the elevation, and you know, I don't see a sign of him, and you know, so I stop and wait, getting ready to turn around and go back and find him, and you know, eventually he comes around the corner, and you know, he's limping, and he had, it wasn't quite a spruce trap, but it was still, you know, stepped off the monorail and smashed his knee into a tree, and you know, he was hurting. So, but you know, he didn't want to, you know, he's a proud dude and didn't want to turn around, and you know, so we tried to give it a shot for a little bit, but you know, we hadn't even hit the elevation yet, and you know, who knew, you know, there was no recent trail conditions reports, nothing out in like the Facebook groups. No one had been up to North and South Twin, at least who had reported it, you know, in some time. So I'm like, you know what, Christian, this just isn't. It isn't our day on this. You know, we can tough it out and get further up, but you know, again, we were playing a north-south twin, and who knew what it was going to be like, up above 3,000 feet, and certainly between, the cold between the two. And then I was a little nervous about coming down off a south twin to Galehead. And I'm like, it's just, these guys are going to be here another day. Let's just, because, we were already 4 miles out. So, we had 4 miles on a bum knee to try and get back, or, could potentially have made the situation worse. So it took a little talking. But he ultimately was like, it is the right call.
Yeah, it's tough. Imagine with him too working on the single season winner. It's like you hate to have something like that happen. When I crossed him, I just did Carter Dome in that freezing cold day. He actually went out and did Carter Dome Middle and South Carter later on, which he powered through. And I'm like, kudos to you, because I had enough of the cold, and I'm like, I'm just gonna count it and kind of go home back to dinner time, I think. But he was out there crushing it.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I mean, we had to hoof it 4 miles back to the car.
Yeah, it's no easy.
But it was, at least we were reversing course on a pretty, we had broken it out a bit, and then ran into some familiar faces on the way back to the car. Ran into Joanne Hall and her husband, George. And, so they gave us a little bit of encouragement and such, a little pat in the back. And then, I think we ran into Captain Chris at the trailhead, and
awesome.
So it was nice. We probably on the way back passed 7 to 10 sets of shoes, so we were able to get back on a packed down trail, which was great. But we got back to the Seven Dwarfs Motel probably around 10 o'clock, and then I drove him over to Beaverbrook to get his car, and he was on his way to urgent care to get things checked out. That was a tough morning. But
I want to call out to you just through the socials that I think Joanne and George, I think, made it to North, but I don't think anybody made it to South that day. Literally, you guys, I'm sure contributed. It's kind of funny how, with the winter factor of it's almost like you don't want to be the first people on the trail, kind of like that. Nobody wants to be the person breaking trail, but it's interesting, and it just shows how difficult some of the conditions have been this year, where it's you're talking multiple groups heading up, and nobody got further than North Twin probably, which is a haul in itself. I mean, it's I believe it's 11.2 to North and South Twin out and back from the summer route. I think maybe I think it's around 15-ish, I think, in probably the winter to do both of those from the Seven Dwarfs. So you're talking almost 4,000 feet, something like that. So that's a hell of a day.
Yeah. No, I mean, we knew we were in for a long day, even if everything went well. Getting out to Galehead and then coming down to Galehead River.
Oh yeah, and you guys have even more up.
Yeah. So, so it was a bummer, for sure. He was bummed, and I was part hiker, part therapist, kind of talking him off the ledge a little bit. But I was it's hard. You put a lot of work in, and to have to, turn around and such. And it's gosh, this sucks.
Yeah.
You're going up there to accomplish a mission, and you don't pull it off. It does. It is a little bruising to the ego for sure.
Yeah. But you hadn't had enough bruising, it sounded like, after that.
No. So I am part masochist. So I get him back to his car, and I'm like, well, heck, it's only 10:30 in the morning. What am I going to do now? I'm I didn't come out this way. I didn't stay up, get a sleepless night on the top bunk, and gosh, what was the name of the room? It doesn't matter, at the Notch Hostel, and to go home without anything. So I decided I had orphaned Willey back in January. So we had done Deanna and I had done Tom Field, and try to make a way. We were able to be in spikes all the way to Field. The trail was in great shape. Yeah. But no one had really been, there had been probably a few sets of shoes between Field and Willey. So, we gave it a go, but, I quickly realized maybe halfway to Willey that just, it we were starting to burn daylight, and I just, without shoes, I think we would have put ourselves in a stupid situation.
Okay, I didn't realize you guys actually tried to go there for a bit.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha. Yeah, it goes down. I always say with those, like, I think I've done them 5 times now, and somehow I still need them in 1 or 2 seasons at least. But like, I always forget how steeply it goes down from Field to Willey. And I always forget how long it actually is to Willey. It's like, for some reason in my head, it's one of those things where I think because I just block it out, apparently, going over there, there's not really anything for view. I think there's maybe one view that you can sort of see out to the bonds until you get up to the sort of those slides and stuff that are off the true summit.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, sorry. You'll see it eventually. not to rub it in, but and it's a very steep ascent back up to Field from Willey. Like, every time I've done that, the book I think says it's under 4,000 feet to do all 3 in a day. I've gotten over 4,000 feet every time. So take that what you will, but it's another challenging day for sure.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason we turned around on that trip, because it was like, we were already, that time of year, it was early in January, I think, if I remember right. And, it's dark at 4:30. It's probably like already like 2:30. We're only halfway to Willey. And I was like, even if we get there, we gotta get back.
You gotta headlamp it out, which
which we had. We were well prepared from that perspective. But I was like, tired legs and getting back up to Field. I'm like, you know what, I'll get it another time. So fast forward to President's Weekend, and it being 10:30 in the morning, I had the bright idea, I'm going to go over and grab Willey. So my plan was to park over by the Willey house, or actually that next lot, the Ethan Pond lot.
Okay.
And what I talked myself into was I was going to go and check out the trail. And if the trail, I had already had, I didn't give you those numbers, like 8, we had done, Christian and I had done 8 miles, and it took us 5 hours because we were that half mile on the other side of the river, kind of beat us up a bit and took a bit. So I'm heading over to Willey. I've already got 8 miles in 5 hours in me, on like no sleep. And but I got there, and the trail was in great shape, and it was lost on me that like this was the Ethan Pond and the Ripley Falls Trail, so it's probably sees a good amount of traffic. But I set out. I got to that railroad crossing, and there was a group of 4 people. They'll come back into the story a little later, and they were trying to figure out their day, and they ultimately ended up going, trying to grab Willey too. So, but anyway, I went up Ethan Pond Trail, which continues on to the Willey Range Trail, and
yeah, that was going to be my question, because I'm like, it's funny because I've never gone up that side, but I have done Ripley Falls before. But that is the same trail where Ripley Falls splits off left. Okay, gotcha. For some reason, I thought it was another lot in my head, but okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it just keeps going straight, and it turns into the Willey Range Trail. And that's like known for, the ladders on that side, which were, with all the snow, were non-existent. So, the ladders are there for a reason. That is a steep trail, man. Like, and to try and get that with snowshoes and tired legs, like it was, I was really struggling with traction. I'm like, do I take the shoes off and try and get up these with spikes? And, ultimately got up above the ladders, and I got about a half mile. I hadn't seen anyone, and got about a half mile from the summit, and finally a couple is coming down, and they were bare boot, and they're like, we bailed. I'm like, no, please don't. like, yeah, it's chest deep snow. I'm like, they're like, but you have snowshoes, so you can do it. I'm like, all right,
you'll be fine.
Yeah. So I carried on. I'm like, you know what? I'll go up and check it out. I didn't come this far, for nothing. So I get up, and I'm probably about 0.3 from the summit, and there was a big blowdown. And so I worked my way around that, and that's when I saw what they saw. And it was just untouched. untouched snow. So I took a few steps, and it was like above the knee, and then I'm like, this is just stupid. This just isn't meant to be. So I was getting ready to turn around and call it again for the second time today. The mountains win again. And all of a sudden I hear voices, and it was the group of 4 people that were down at the train tracks. And they're like, what's going on? I'm like, it's not good. And so, one of the guys was like, I think we can give it a shot. And they had parked down at the Willey house, which is probably like a mile, I think, from the Ethan Pond trailhead. Okay. And I'm like, look, if you guys can help me get up this mountain, we'll take turns, whatever. I'll drive you back to your car. And they're like, deal. So one guy like jumps in front, takes like a couple steps, and almost goes down a spruce trap. Like that looked like it would have been up to.
And they had snowshoes on and stuff too.
They had snowshoes too. Yeah. And he almost like, it was one of those things. He took a step and the snow just collapsed, and you just saw this like cavern, and we're all just like, nope, not doing it.
Yeah.
And so we had to turn around, and the only like saving grace, we got the butt sled down a bit, because that is a steep trail. Sometimes accidentally butt sledding, but yeah, I mean, I got back to my car. It was like I had done 13 miles that day. I think it was about 3,500 feet of gain, 8.5 hours, and just like nothing to show for it.
Peaks.
It made for a long, like 2.5 hour drive home. I'll tell you that. I'm just like, son of a bitch. But it's like I look back and having had a bad experience, a stupid experience a couple years prior on North Moat, where I put myself in a stupid situation. It was like, I'm like, you know what? You did the right thing, as much as it sucks and it hurts, and you're pissed off right now. It's and it's hard to swallow, but given how much effort you put in, certainly coming from Mass and such, but it was the right decision. It was the right decision to turn around with Christian. It was certainly the right decision to turn around on top of Willey, who's now 2-0 against me, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, it's like you said. It's important that you made the right decision to sort of get done safe, especially with the Christian thing. I know that's probably tough to like trying to. I hope you heal up, Christian. I know he's listened to some episodes too, but yeah, it's like, I'm sure like he knows too, where it's like the North Twin Trail is steep as hell, especially the upper third of it. Like it's not somewhere you want to be going with a knee injury. Like that top section of that trail is a doozy for sure. Not that there's many places in the Whites that are a doozy, but I would say that one definitely stands out, where it's just one of those grinds up. It's akin to like growing up like Falling Waters or old Bridle Path up Franconia Ridge, where it kind of just doesn't let up until you finally pop out on North Twin. So
yeah, he rubbed some dirt on it, and he's already, I think, banged out Kerrigan in isolation. So
good for him.
And he's going back up to grab the Twins on Saturday, I think.
Good for him, man. Well, we wish him.
Have you had similar?
No, I've not.
Have you had a similar event where it's just like, I think you did earlier. Not earlier the year in October, not in the winter, but I was actually heading up to do Cannon and bag it for fall in the afternoon, and I think it was probably like 1:30, and it was one of those times where we just had a bunch of ice, and like it was so much glare ice. I was headed up from the Kinsman Ridge lot from the tram side, which I've done before in the winter multiple times. I'd never done it without snow, which is kind of a different animal. It's very washed out and eroded, and I made it. Maybe it's only 2.4 miles or 2.2 miles, I think, to the summit from that side. So it's very short and steep. And I got maybe halfway up. I was kind of getting bad vibes where I'm like, I don't know about this. But the thing that was getting me that day was with the photos. It was around, people were talking about the snowliage photos. Like there was snow on top of Franconia Ridge, but there was still foliage in Franconia Notch. So I was like, I just want to get up to the Cannon Cliffs, if nothing else, and get a shot up there. But as I was going up, there was actually a group of kind of two ladies, a guy and a dog.
And right as it starts to get steep and you start sort of crossing some ledges and whatnot, almost before you actually cross, there's actually a Glades trail from Cannon that you cross on part of the trail. But basically I saw this woman slide out with her dog, like in front of me, like 6 or 7 feet, like straight down, and they had spikes on and everything. And I was kind of chatting with them. They're like, "Oh, do you have spikes?" I'm like, "Yeah." And the guy's like, "Oh, it was like 1:30." And again, it's like mid-October. So it's getting dark at like 5:30, probably something like that. So I kind of knew I had to get up there. I'd probably be coming down in the dark just because of how the shadows sort of hit the notch that time of year in the low sun angle. But I went up a little bit further after them, and I kind of pulled it where I'm like, this is just, my stupid bell was going off, I'll call it, where I just was like, this, I don't need to do this. Like, I was slip sliding around, my spikes weren't helping. And I've actually had an incident on Cannon, I think 2 winters ago now, when I was trying to go for it for the winter. And above the section where you break out of the trees, I don't know, have you been up that side, Paul, to Cannon before? Or
only in summer.
Okay. But the section where it gets more, you kind of have the Cannon Cliffs lookout, and you keep sort of going up. And then when it breaks out to that section where you can sort of see the observatory, like tower and stuff, and you kind of start, it's like almost open alpine zone. I actually spent like half an hour, 40 minutes trying to find the trail over there. And it was just so windblown and stuff that I was alone. There was nobody else up there. And I'm like, I got to pull the plug on it. I think I'd hiked down to the Flume Gorge or something, but that was kind of one of those instances of like, it was frustrating too, because I could see the observatory tower with visibility, and it's like I just couldn't get there. Like, I'm like, where does this trail go? And it was drifted and stuff, and I didn't know where it was at all because I hadn't gone up that side before. I'm a little bit more familiar with it now, but it's definitely, like you said, it is definitely frustrating. Like, especially that, like, again, one of those days you get up. I probably got up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and you're driving up to try to go get it back and get home, and you're like, shit, like. And I could see it. I'm like, it's right there. Like, I know it's not that far away. It's not like it's not like the Twins were, certainly, where it's like a 5-mile out hike or something like that. But it definitely leaves a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Since gone back and got it for fall, and I've hiked up there in the winter now. Like, if that thing's packed, it's probably one of my favorite sort of short 4,000 footer trails in the winter. Can be kind of a nice little highway up there. But yeah, it can be tough, but you got to make the right decisions, I guess. All right, cool.
You've gotten yourself over your skis, Josh, and anything? I know it might not be hiking, but
all the time, dude. Every day that I get up. No, I mean, I think in general, I think we all can relate with the idea of putting yourself in a situation where you're in, you feel like you're in over your head. Sometimes it's one of those things where you push through and you realize, all right, I can do this. Sometimes it's a thought of maybe I'm not prepared or as good as I thought I was at something. But with this, with what you guys are discussing, these are situations where it can be seriously dangerous. So to step away and say, yeah, like you said before, Paul, these are going to be here another day. So to step away and say, yep, I'm gonna walk away from this, you're preventing a potential tragedy from happening. You're preventing a rescue crew having to be sent out. You're preventing yourself from maybe not making it home, and you know how many people that's going to affect. So I think these are good. These are smart decisions that you made. And yeah, I mean, obviously with Christian being hurt, it's even more of a good decision, because now it's you. If something happened up there and this guy can't walk at all, now what? Now you're gonna have to try to drag him down or something like that. So yeah, no, I think you made the right call, and I mean we can all relate to that idea of just kind of feeling like you're in over your head, or when the warning bells start going off in your gut, that's probably means something's up. So yeah, good choices.
Yeah, I found with the day on Cannon, especially with the ice, like I think the first thing I was thinking is that if I was telling, like, for example, like Paul or some of the people I hike with, if I was going up there and like, oh, you slipped and you broke your ankle or something like that, then be like, what the hell were you doing going up there by yourself at 3:30 coming down with sheer ice? like in Glaze, like this is just a bad, like if I'm having trouble using spikes up there, like I probably shouldn't be using spikes and should just go down. Like it's just the conditions aren't allowing it. Like I think that's one of those things where I mental check of like, is this a stupid just for me to get a foliage or a snowleage picture? Like, is it worth maybe like busting myself on here? Like, no, it's not. Like just turn around and actually I ended up going later that day and hiking Welch Dickey. So that was a much better decision. I got some local intel from Stomp, basically, and I was texting him, and he's like, "How is it up there?" He's like, "Oh yeah, the ice is awful right now in Franconia Notch." I'm like, "No kidding," but he mentioned, I'm like, "Does it look dry down there?" And he's like, "Oh, the Welch." Yeah, he's like, "I was up there a couple days ago. It's dry as a bone." So I was like, "That sounds much better." And I'll hit, and I hit sunset up there too, so that was phenomenal. It ended up being a much more enjoyable day.
It was like, I know I'll put a bow on it. So I come off the trail, I drive those people back to their car, and I had this, like, I was starting to have like creeping thoughts of, you know what? I'm driving past Willard. Why don't I just go and bang out Willard? It's only like 3 miles. Already, like,
need a summit.
I can get, and it was
I'm
still
sure
like
I'm sure it's well trodden
in the afternoon. Like, it was like 2:33. I'm like, I got plenty of time to do Willard. Like, but I got over to Crawford Notch, and it was just a madhouse over there. On a nice weekend. So it was. Thankfully, actually, there was a lot of people and no parking over there. Otherwise, I might have tried to do that as well. Add to my lore of the day.
I thought it would have been hysterical if you're like, I could get Pierce. I bet Pierce is packed down. I've already gotten it, but that's awesome.
That's funny, dude.
So whilst you were toiling away in the whites, in the unpacked trails, I was up in the Adirondacks with some family over the weekend, and me and Ash hadn't been out hiking together, I don't think alone, since we did San Jacinto back in April. Like, I was trying to think, I'm like, it's been that long since we've been on the trail together. Just us, but that's the way it goes.
Isn't it insane to think like that? Like, it really has.
Yeah,
been. Because when was that? That was
April.
September?
April?
No, that was almost a year.
Last April. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is kind of funny because at that point we were saying that we wanted the irony. I thought of it too is that on that hike, so when we hit it, like, so San Jacinto being out, and we have a whole episode on it. You can go chase it if you want to, bet in our back catalog. But a lot of those mountains in Southern California and stuff, there's this whole factor where people try to hit them early so the snow fields aren't turning into mashed potatoes. And we hit it dead on in mashed potato time. So I was kicking myself for being like, I'm like, we're not going to fly with snowshoes. Where are we? And I definitely could have fit snowshoes in the giant bag I had. And I'm like, we're not going to need them. Whatever. We'll get spikes. Cue to us like punching through post holing at like 10,000 feet up a mountain that we've never been up before. Kind of going through. So we wished we had snowshoes on this day, but I think especially Ash was done with snowshoes by the time we finished the peaks that we're doing out there. So I'm tentatively working on sort of my 46 and sort of I'd love to do the Northeast 115. That's like a super long-term goal I have. And it'd been a bit since I'd been out there. I did dial in Nipple Top, I think, back in September to make it 20 out of 46. And last winter, which is also on the podcast episode, we wish we had got my father-in-law back on at the time, but we tried to get to Colden last February and really had a hell of a time going up the backside from Lake Colden, a very steep section of trail there. And I may have traumatized my father-in-law. I apologize, Tony, who didn't want to go hiking this winter with us. He's like, no, I'm good. I'll just stay at the house with Rylan and Lisa, and I'll do a day skiing with you guys, and that'll be enough for me.
So smart, Tony. Good job.
Yes.
Golf season's right around the corner, dude. Yeah. That's why he got no injuries. Can't risk it.
He doesn't want to jeopardize. He's been playing some good golf late into the season, so he's hoping it continues. But anyways, we were sort of watching the weather, and in New York, much like the Whites and the sort of Vermont and everything, has gotten a ton of snow this year. The ranger at the Adirondack Lodge was estimating that they have around 60 inches of snow above like sort of the 3,500 foot line. And that's just snowpack. That's like hard pack, not even drifts and things like that. So there's a boatload of snow up there. But the good news for us is that unlike the whites, which I think before you guys and you and Christian went up, I think they got like a dumping of snow like Tuesday and then Thursday of like that week, kind of leading into the weekend.
Wow.
So the Adirondacks at least hadn't had any snow for probably like 6 or 7 days, or at least significant snow. So we definitely had the advantage of people having been out there and breaking trail. I was kind of nervous seeing pictures of people in spruce traps and sort of seeing trail reports, but there is like a Facebook group called Adirondack Trail Conditions. That's a pretty good information source. They're actually, I kind of like it too, where it's like they don't allow, like if your post doesn't pertain to trail conditions, like if you're just like, these photos, and I've definitely been one of those people that's just tried to share photos before, I'm not going to lie. They will absolutely kick out your post if it doesn't have anything trail condition related, but it's cool because it keeps it down to sort of the meat and potatoes of like what you're trying to find. And I was able to find out from a few people kind of through Friday into Saturday, even Saturday morning, I think before we left, like someone commented like 6:30 a.m. basically being like, I was on it yesterday. It's a packed highway for snowshoes. So I was really glad to hear that it was broken out. And the 2 peaks that we were going to do were Street and Nye. So Street and Nye are out of the giant Adirondack Lodge sort of parking area. There's a couple different main trailheads in the Adirondacks. The Lodge is most commonly where people tend to head to Marcy from. You can get to sort of all the like peaks like Skylight and Gray and Colden, and you can kind of really get into the center of the High Peaks wilderness from there. It's a really common jumping off point for many different hikes in the area. And at this point in my sort of what I've got left for Adirondack High Peaks, like I haven't really done a lot of the quote unquote viewless ones. And with the kind of day that we were looking to do together, it seemed pretty manageable. With allegedly it's actually 8.4 miles and like 25 feet. I got almost 10 miles and I got close to 3,000. So that could very well be just how people broke out trail versus what the actual trail is. Once you actually get off the Indian Pass Trail, it's actually technically a herd path, a very well-defined one at that. I don't think you could really get off it, but it isn't technically a maintained trail. But it was good to kind of try to hit some of these more or less commonly done ones. Like typically these are ones you're only really hitting if you're trying to get your 46. So kind of picked these based on just location, stats, the kind of day we were looking. I was optimistic with the snowpack that we'd actually have some views, which we did get some good views from Nye, so that was cool. So the day starts out for this one at parking out, like I said, that Adirondack Lodge parking area. There is a $10 fee for non-members of the Adirondack Mountain Club. If you're a member, it's only $5. It's half price. The good thing with this that's new, which I thought was cool, is they actually take credit cards. They had a Ranger there. Right there, like we got there 6 and probably 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, something like that. So that was kind of neat to pay for your parking. Do get there early, even in the winter, if you want to get there. An Adirondack thing too is kind of a lot of the parking areas are a little bit smaller, a little bit more constrained than I think the whites. It's also kind of nice because it just limits how many people can get in and out of there and how much abuse the trails take. So that's kind of cool. And from there, you're going to basically follow signs. There are signs for Street and Nye, but technically it's the Indian Pass Trail. And you'll keep following this around Heart Lake, which was sort of the first, I guess, site of the day that we saw. We had never checked out Heart Lake. It's a lake in sort of that lodge area where you can sort of look up to the McIntyre Range and Algonquin. Just really pretty. It was completely frozen over. The only obstacle in the morning was getting out of the car, and it was like -8 or -10 degrees, something like that. So it was tough to sort of get going. Like we're trying to get our snowshoes on and get situated. I actually took video of most of the day, so I'm like trying to like manage like keeping my hands warm and getting my camera sort of set up and all that good stuff. And Ash is refamiliarizing herself with putting on snowshoes after not wearing them for probably a couple years. So we're kind of getting situated. And at some point we're like, we just got to kind of keep moving because it's freezing. The good news was the forecast was pretty good for the day, like partly sunny. And the temperatures were supposed to rebound into like the 20s, which they did by the afternoon. So that was cool. So after passing Heart Lake, eventually you'll see a sign basically pointing to Street and Nye, and this is the unmaintained trail section off the Indian Pass Trail. And more or less pretty much monotonous and sort of smooth sailing in a good way from here. We just had our snowshoes on. We did pass one guy in spikes who claimed that you could use spikes. We also saw his post holes and his sort of heel holes much of the way up in front of us. So you do you, buddy. I think everybody does their own thing in the trails, but if like 25 people that day had snowshoes on and you're the one guy out of like 26 that didn't have them on, then I would argue that you probably should have had snowshoes on, especially if you were punching up the trail a little bit here and there. Eventually you sort of maybe say it's probably around like the 3,600 foot line. You kind of come to this T-junction where you can go north to Nye and south to Street, which the way that they name these, I have to think that's definitely on purpose, that they made the one with the N to the north and the one with the S to the south. It seems too coincidental not to be. In the way up here was pretty fun. I'll have to show out the video when I do edit it, but there was a couple portions where, like the Whites, there's just insanely deep snow, and we were actually crawling under spruce trees, like bent over, like almost like sort of little like snow cave kind of deals. Kind of on our all fours a couple times. So that was kind of interesting and made for a fun little adventure getting up there. And eventually we got to that T-junction, and I'm kind of talking to Ash. Ash was definitely feeling hiking in snowshoes, understandably. Like I've kind of had the advantage of hiking most of this winter season in snowshoes and been getting out there. So she was doing awesome, but she really wanted to just play it safe with sort of deciding which peak we wanted to go first. Nye is about like 0.2 miles away from the junction, and then Street's like maybe half a mile. So we figured we go to the further one first, with that also has a little bit more elevation gain, and then we could kind of get back to the junction. And we figured worst case, I'll run out to Nye and grab that quick while she kind of chills at the junction, and then we'll sort of meet up and just head back down. But she ended up getting to both, so that was cool. Heading to Street, pretty much just pushing through the trees. And sort of more snow, nothing too crazy. We finally got to the summit area. There were a couple people there. The summit sign was maybe, which is normally, I looked at pictures, probably 6.5, 7 feet off the ground, was basically at our shins. So kind of could tell how deep that snowpack was. Unfortunately, and I didn't mention already I did mention what the forecast was for weather, but there was basically snow clouds hanging around sort of 4,000 feet like most of the day. So we were sort of dealing with on and off snow showers. And Street, which is known to have sort of the better view from the summit area, which it did have a couple different clearings. Like you just couldn't see anything. Like it was just completely socked in. So that was a bit of a bummer, but not the end of the world, I guess. It was pseudo expected with how the skies were looking sort of on the way up. After bagging Street, made our way back to the junction. And kind of crossed. There were quite a few people out behind us. Like we were almost a little bit ahead of the bubble. I would say we probably saw 15 or 20 people by the end of the day. And made our way back to the junction and then headed up to Nye, which Nye was a very short little up, maybe like 100 feet or whatever from that junction. And like I said, 0.2 miles. So it was really easy getting up there. And finally the skies parted as we were getting up there with a little open area. So we got a really nice view back to the McIntyre range, could see the Great Range in the distance, and Colden, and you actually could see Marcy for a little bit, kind of lurking behind Algonquin and whatnot, which was cool to see with, and I got some really interesting shots with sort of snow clouds sort of blowing in and out and snow blowing everywhere. And it was just really neat to see. I was kind of pointing out the peaks to Ash and stuff, because I had been across to Iroquois like a couple years ago and whatnot. And we had actually done Algonquin and Wright Peak together. So it was kind of neat to look over there. So it was cool. We enjoyed being up there. I think I took video basically up to the point that I got to the summit of Nye, and then kind of called in until doing a little outro sort of on Heart Lake. And it was just sort of a long, monotonous hike out of there. I will say, like there was nothing super exciting. You kind of just going through the woods, and then right at the end there was kind of a bit of a interesting section where it's like we were both saying like we just would have preferred like it went 200 or 300 feet up on the way out, but more or less the beginning of the trail goes down into this area of Indian Pass Brook, which can be a tricky, difficult water crossing, I guess, almost akin to like probably like Little River, where if it's not frozen over, it can really be almost impossible to get over it. This winter, not a problem. The thing like seemed like it was frozen solid. I don't know how it'll be with some of the weather moving in kind of these past few weeks, but it was good for us. But on the way back out, we actually did I clocked like another 300 feet of elevation gain, but like it was slowly over like a mile and a half. Like it wouldn't just be like an up. Like I almost just wish it was like boop, like, and then you kind of go up to the high point and kind of go over. And Ash was really feeling it on her legs by that point. So we're kind of just plodding along, getting up to that area of Heart Lake. Eventually made it up to there, and the temperatures really warmed up. Like I was saying, it was like probably like 23 degrees, and we started, it was like -8. So that was really nice. And yeah, we sort of hightailed it out of there and took some pictures on the Adirondack Lodge Road, which has really nice views sort of out to, again, like the McIntyre Range and Mount Colden and sort of this whole area. It's really something to see. It's really beautiful, especially in the winter. And the snow piles on the side of the road had to be like 9 or 10 feet high from the plows. I was like, almost like, should I put on my spikes to get up these snow piles to get a picture kind of deal, which was cool. And I did pull a couple factoids just on the naming of these peaks, since I honestly didn't know myself, and Street and Nye are just kind of interesting names. But Street is actually named for Alfred Billings Street, who is a prominent New York State librarian. And he was also the author of a famous book called The Indian Pass. So I would take it makes sense, and it must refer to the Indian Pass that actually goes between the McIntyre Range and I think kind of where Street and Nye is in that Indian Pass trail. And then William, and I thought this was funny because of Bill Nye the Science Guy, but Nye is named after William Bill Nye, who is actually a guide from...
Is that not Bill Nye the Science Guy?
No, it's not. William B. Nye, but again, Bill Nye. Sorry, I said that incorrectly. I'm like reading this while I'm bad at reading and talking at the same time, apparently. But yeah, so like Bill, his name's literally Bill Nye. So William Nye. But he was a guide from North Alba. And this kind of refers back to another feature in the Adirondacks, but he is the guide that carried Matilda across the hitch-up Matildas in the ford, the Matilda Ford on Avalanche Lake and Avalanche Pass. So have you ever heard of the hitch-up Matildas, Paul? Or kind of aware? So basically in Avalanche Pass in the Adirondack High Peaks, which is this beautiful area, it's a very like narrow chasm that has a lake on it. You can actually walk across it in the winter. And it sits between basically Mount Colden and Avalanche Mountain. But there's actually an area of almost boardwalks that are actually drilled. I'll have to send you a picture of this, but they're actually drilled. So there's like planks, basically like your walls like here, and there's planks, and they just go along the side of this like sheer like cliff face, and they're just drilled into it. And it was made to basically make it easier so that it used to be like a thing where if you were hiking through there, you had to like just ford across this shallow area of the lake. There was no good way to get around it because this cliff was in the way. So they actually built up these things. And from this whole Matilda story with this guide carrying this woman basically so she wouldn't get wet, which is an interesting story. We won't get too much into that. But they actually built these planks along the water in Avalanche Lake to avoid like having to actually get and ford the river to actually get through there. And they're basically known as the hitch-up Matildas. Is kind of, they're more or less boardwalk planks. So it's kind of a weird little thing there. But
yeah. Chivalry's not dead.
Exactly. But yeah, that's sort of your factoids on the peaks. And the only other thing I was going to mention too is that Nye is one of those Adirondack high peaks that they messed up with the elevation at first. So Nye is actually only 3,895 feet. It's below 4,000 feet.
That's the Adirondacks Tecumseh.
Yeah, basically. Except I think the Adirondacks have like 6 or 7 of those, something like that. So they messed up a few of those guys that are under 4,000 feet with their approximations. But hey, they didn't have like LiDAR and things that we do now. So it's impressive to me that they came that close estimating many. I know like Mount Marcy in the Adirondacks, I believe one of the original guys, Van Hovenberg, that had done, I'm trying to think of, I guess surveying, you'd call it, like the surveyors that were doing the land, but he got like the height of Marcy right within like a couple feet or something like that, which is pretty amazing. Back then. So they did what they can. But yeah, sort of a Tecumseh of the Adirondacks in that way. But that was my little Adirondack side story. 22 out of 46. And Ash is probably in the teens now, I think. We were trying to figure that out when we were out there. But it was good to get out there and did a day skiing at Whiteface and kind of hightailed it out of there and got home. So it was a good time.
It's great.
Cool.
Longer approaches, right? With the Adirondacks?
Yeah, in general, it seems like that. Not necessarily as many of like getting out of your car and just starting up, like a lot of them. Like even with Street and Nye, like I think the first 2 or 3 miles you're only gaining a couple hundred feet, and then it's like there was a bit where we're going up sort of a valley where it did probably like 1,500 or 1,200 feet in like a mile, so you're going up. So it's, but yeah, more of like approach where I feel like the whites are, a lot of them are like, you kind of just get out of the car and it's just kicking your butt like immediately. Whereas the Adirondacks, you're hiking into sort of and I can really only speak to that central High Peaks wilderness area. I haven't gotten to like the Santanoni range and some of the other outer ranges, but definitely more of a approach and then kind of going straight up. And I feel like a lot of longer mileages, though. I've also read that doing the 48 and the 46 ends up being almost equivalent mileage a lot of times with traverses and things like that. And the whites, the Adirondacks do not have the above tree line and alpine zone that the whites have. So there's probably only 3 or 4 peaks that really have alpine, whereas in the whites you've got like they have nothing like the presidential range or kind of Franconia Ridge or anything, but really beautiful views. I would say like Marcy Algonquin we've done that both have extensive alpine zone or just like anything in the whites, but just different shaped mountains and I don't know, just different vibes. It's definitely love them.
Very cool.
Cool, man. Well, we ready to get into the descent, gentlemen?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So anybody, I've been lame. I have not been watching anything. I've just been fighting the TV, trying to not watch Love is Blind. Occasionally at night and occasionally just giving up and trying to find something else to do. So hopefully you guys have been maybe watching some interesting stuff or reading some interesting stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we'll call this interesting. So me and Melissa this past weekend watched the movie Fall Guy. Have you seen that yet? Ryan Gosling.
Was that based off the old TV show?
Yeah, it's based off the old TV show, but yeah, I didn't realize that until afterwards that it was an older TV show. But so it is. It's based off the old TV show. Basically, in this movie, Ryan Gosling is a stuntman who then is being framed for a murder, and now is trying to basically clear himself and get this guy caught. Catch this guy, whatever it is, and is in love with this director and blah 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 blah. It sounds like it would be great. It sounds like it'd be a really nice action-packed movie, and it is just so bad. It's just not good. It was not well written for whatever reason. I have no idea. Like, it's. They forced this love story that just didn't make any sense. It was weird, but I mean, the action scenes are pretty good, but yeah, I would not recommend the Fall Guy.
Well, you just get a steer clear message more. That's unfortunate.
How about you, Paul? You got anything?
Right now, working our way through 0 Day on Netflix with De Niro, and it's
okay.
De Niro's it's a limited series, so I think it's like 6 episodes or something like that. I think we're halfway through. It is it's all about like a 0 day computer attack, and De Niro is a former president of the United States, and he is brought back in. So there was like the premise of it was, all the computer systems like across the country, regardless if it was, Windows or Apple, Droid, iOS, everything like went down for like a minute, but in that minute, like 4,000 people died or something along those lines. And so it's just really treated, obviously very seriously. And so they recruit the current president recruits De Niro to come back in and run a task force to try and figure out who was behind it and how do they prevent it from happening again. So it's again probably halfway through right now. So it's I don't have spoilers to give you. So it's pretty good.
Spoiler free.
Pretty good. Enjoying it. I'm looking forward to queuing up another episode tonight for sure after this.
Cool.
Yeah, that sounds good. That reminds me of this episode of, this movie I watched, but I can't remember what it was, where basically that same thing happens. Like all the computer systems go offline, and then like the world just starts collapsing, planes start falling from the sky, and all kinds of crazy nonsense. The smart cars start driving themselves into like walls. Wild stuff.
I gotta say, I think it speaks a lot.
Are you guys ready for a?
Oh, I had one other comment. I was just gonna mention it. So, especially in light of like the Oscars and stuff happening, but I think it speaks volumes to maybe how the film industry is going, that you got like Robert De Niro doing like limited Netflix series now. Like I think it's I think we're living in an era of like, it seems like the limited series on TV are like getting more spend and more attention than a lot of the movies coming out. Or in more is probably a massive understatement. Like they're a lot more popular and they're getting a lot more production value, but it's cool. I'm liking it. So
I'm enjoying them. 4, 6, 8 episodes, something like that. It's good. I think some of them are real well done, and then some of them I feel like they are jamming like too much into a smaller product, and it's like, wait, there's more plot holes and things like that. This one's pretty good. Cool.
Put it on my radar. Good. All right, Josh.
Are you ready? Are you ready for a hypothetical? A tandem hypothetical.
Paul's a hypothetical virgin, so
I gotta maybe get down to some push-ups or something.
All right. Well, there's no time like the present, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Can you read it with the sunglasses, Josh?
Oh, I'm gonna do my best. All right, Nick and Paul.
Josh.
So you are suddenly given immortality and $1 million. At the same time, a super intelligent snail is also given immortality and $1 million. However, you die if the snail touches you. It always knows where you are and slowly crawls towards you. What is your plan to evade this snail, and do you intend to invade it for all time?
That's an interesting one. So if they say don't touch the snail, what, like, because and obviously you couldn't kill the snail because you're touching it.
The snail, if the snail touches you, you die. The snail can't die; it's immortal. It has $1 million. I don't know what it's going to do with that $1 million.
What's the snail doing with $1 million?
I don't know what he's going to do with $1 million, but it's immortal, so you can't like salt it. You can't do any of that.
So they mean immortal in the sense of like you're like a werewolf or something, and nothing can kill you. You're not just gonna live forever. Okay, gotcha.
The only thing that can kill you is this snail. So, what is your plan to evade this snail, and then do you attempt to evade it for eternity?
Is the snail fast? Like, am I allowed to sleep? Like,
no, it's snail. It moves at regular snail speed. It just has $1 million. Whatever it does with that it says it's super intelligent. So whatever super intelligence is for a snail, you got to assume that it's smart. It can maybe unlock doors. So
just imagine walking into this room and there's just a snail on the desk with like all the stocks up on it, and just like he's trading stocks, like shorting people and whatnot.
Didn't SpongeBob have a snail?
Yeah, Gary.
He did.
Gary the snail.
Is it Gary? Has Gary got $1 million? He's coming for you.
Yeah, he's got it. He's coming for you. So what do you do? What do you do? What's your plan to evade this snail and live your life?
I mean, I feel like the $1 million part's kind of irrelevant. Like it's $1 million, but like if you have to evade this snail for all eternity, like you probably just invest it and like just keep trying to outrun the snail. Like, I don't know. Though if he's intelligent, I'm assuming he can get to like different places, but hopefully you can get one step ahead of him. They make it sound like the snail wants to kill you though. Like maybe he's just chilling and he's crawling towards you, but maybe he won't touch you. Maybe he'll just look at you.
That's a good point.
Maybe he just wants you to talk to you because you guys both are in this conundrum and he's in a hyperthetical with you.
Yeah. So let's imagine that he is always trying to touch you. Let's imagine that. I mean, I would try to figure out how long it would take a snail to like crawl like a mile, and then I would just like figure out, okay, can I spend a whole year in one place, and then once it gets there, just leave that place and go spend a whole year across the world somewhere? I think that's what I would do.
What eats snails? Like, although
birds.
It's immortal, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's immortal.
I was trying to think, like, if you go to some island, Caribbean island or something like that, like, how's it going to get to the island?
Super smart. It's intelligent. It's hopping a boat. It knows exactly where you are, and it's getting on that boat. Oh my god!
Yeah, I don't know if there's a really good answer to this one. We're definitely getting to the bottom of the hypotheticals, and I think we're getting to the literal bottom as well.
Well, let me ask you this then. The second part of that question is: do you attempt to evade this snail for eternity? So, is there a point where you're like, all right, I'm immortal. I want to live my life, and then like whatever, 150 years later, you're like, all right, this is kind of I'm all set with this. Come on, snail, bring it.
Wait, I missed that. Are we immortal too?
Yeah, you're immortal.
And the snail's
the snail's immortal. Yeah.
But the snail can kill you though.
That's the only way you can die is if the snail touches you.
But the snail can't die from anything.
This is a bad snail.
I'm pretty sure I get like once all my loved ones pass, I'm probably like, all right, yeah, I'm good. Like, come on, bring on the snail. I don't know.
That's fair. Blow through the mill and then just tap out.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
It's like a long time to be living running.
All right, man.
Snail.
Good stuff. Seriously.
All right. Well.
All right, Nick. Tell them about the stickers.
Yeah, we've got fresh stickers. Send us your name, address, and we'll get them out to you. Paul has gotten stickers. Yep, there we go. Beautiful new. That's one of the matte ones, I believe. They're beautiful.
It is.
So we got the holographic ones and we got the nice matte ones. But yeah, just shoot us your name, address through Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And we'll get them out to you free of charge. Andrew's getting old school PUDs there. He's
throwback.
He's representing. Those are vintage now. They're worth money. If you can find any of those black and white ones with Gothic.
I didn't leave it like in the wrapper or the box or something. So it's on a vessel.
That's
now.
awesome.
It's
on a vessel.
Losing value.
Paul, where can the people find you?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, they don't want to.
Well, if the snail was looking, if the snail was on Instagram, where would he find you on Instagram?
It's just my full name, no spaces. Paul Lamar, PaulLamare, and Facebook as well.
Paul's active. He's active on the socials, so he's got some good stuff. Go check him out.
We will get a really big laugh if any of you want to make an @the_snail on Instagram and then go try to follow Paul after this comes out. The snail that is trying to follow Paul or something like that. That'd be pretty freaking funny.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
Cool.
And you can find us on social media @PUDs Podcast. You can watch us on YouTube @PUDs_podcast. And until next time, bippity boppity, give me the zoppity.
Bye. Paul, what's your bye gonna be?
You gotta have a tagline.
That works. PUDs Podcast was produced and recorded in Black Hat Studios by the Pud Boys. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving us a review and subscribing. Find us on social media, and we'll see you next time.